Today we have with us our host with the Texas Democratic Party, Sarita Robinson. She leads the African American Constituency Initiatives, and she will take it from here. So Sarita, thank you very much. And thank you ladies for joining us.
Hi, thank you. So as Tracy said, my name is Sarita. I am the Black Constituency Organizer with the Texas Democratic Party. TDP has never had a constituency organizing program before, so I am incredibly excited and grateful to be in this role and really expand the party's connection and understanding of the Black community here in Texas. And incredibly grateful to be partnered with Tracy and highlighting issues that are so important to Black folks as a community, especially those of us that are Black women. I would like to take a moment and just let each of our guests introduce themselves. If you all could just give your name, your industry, and just a brief overview of the work that you do. I will start with Kelly.
Well, thank you, Sarita, and thank you, Tracy. I'm Kelly Allen Gray. I serve on Fort Worth City Council, District 8. Have had the awesome pleasure of being the councilwoman since 2012, representing my city and my community, and being a voice and a fighter for those who are most vulnerable, but then also being able to sit at the table and make good policy, not only for my constituents, but for the entire city. And so it's very exciting. And this is such a different time, but still being able to move forward and make policy and be involved in the community in a different way is just as fulfilling. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here with Dr. Alexander and Jillian.
Thank you so much for that. I will now go over to Dr. Alexander.
Oh, good, you unmuted me. Hello, ladies. Thank you for having me. Dr. Stacey Alexander. I'm a private mental health clinician. So I've been licensed since 1998 and have been providing mental health services in a group practice. And I also work over at Paul Quinn College in Dallas over their mental health clinic. One of the things that I do in my free time, if you will, is mental health advocacy. So anytime I have the privilege of serving on a panel to talk about the mental health aspect of a situation, I gladly embrace it, because I think now people are finally grasping how much of an impact our mental health has on us. So I want to thank you again for having me, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. And now over to Jillian.
Yay. All right, so thank you, ladies. Again, I appreciate you allowing me to sit on this panel. My name is Jillian Verdun. I'm based out of the Mansfield, Texas area. I'm an accountant by trade. My organization started in 2007 is when I started my accounting firm. And I quickly realized that there was a lot of educational need around financial literacy, taught in a different way than what it was being presented in. And so that's what my organization kind of focuses on, is helping people to financially basically make themselves maximize their ability within their own household as well as their businesses. So again, thank you. And I know this crisis has exposed a lot of things that a lot of people have questions on how to go forward from. So looking forward to answering that.
Hi,
Great,
Jillian. I'm sorry, Sarita. Jillian, we're getting some static feedback. I don't know if everyone is hearing that from her.
Okay.
From your.
Okay.
So maybe something, adjust something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much better?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the way that we're going to have this event flow a little bit is we'll have some specific questions, but always anyone on the panel, you are welcome to answer. And we want this to feel a little bit like a conversation that we all have the privilege to sit in on. At the end, we will take some audience questions. So if there are any questions that folks want to ask, just put them in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that, and we'll take that for the last few minutes of our program today. To start though, I would love to open this up to Kelly and then to the rest of the panel, but everything going on with COVID has really highlighted, as Jillian was saying, so much about our different systems and the way that, you know, maybe we've been living, functioning, just sort of making things work. And in light of that, we've really been looking to our elected officials to help lead us and help guide us into what is presumably a new way of living, right? It doesn't look like this is going to be changing anytime soon. And even after quarantine, we'll be in a different world, a post-COVID world, if you will. So Kelly, if you could speak a little bit to how elected officials as a whole are involved in moving us through this crisis and what your role in particular has been.
Okay. I think I unmuted myself. There we go. So it's not a secret that many people were actually living paycheck to paycheck prior to this pandemic and this stay home, work safe orders being put into place. The pandemic highlighted it in a way that for many people who don't look like you or I, they actually got to see it firsthand, because I think for so long, the media has portrayed a picture of it's a Black issue, it's a brown issue, it's not necessarily a white issue, but now it is a everyone issue. So I'm really fortunate that I came, prior to me coming to office, I ran a nonprofit organization that did community revitalization with a huge focus on social service outreach. So we walked into office literally with a slew of partners that it was this time was just meant for us to all be together and come together. So every Sunday night, I am a part of a call with all of the African American elected officials from Tarrant County. We do a call and we talk about everything that's going on from the federal to the local level. And then additionally, every day, my office never closed. My council district literally runs right through the middle of Fort Worth. And so it is the most diverse council district in the city, and it is diverse race, ethnicity, gender, social status. I mean, you name it, we have it. And then I also have every single homeless shelter and service provider in the city of Fort Worth, in Tarrant County, in my district. So when I talk about diversity, I'm literally talking about diversity. So we had to start to scramble. We have a lot of seniors. How do we make sure that our seniors who were telling to stay home, how do we make sure that they're staying home, but they still are able to get food, and they're still able to get all of the assistance that they normally would have gotten? Families who've never really had to reach out to assistance, how do we reach out to them and make sure that they know that there are dollars in place to assist them? Just being able to use social media has been a godsend, where many people thought, oh, Facebook, I don't ever want to be on Facebook. I don't ever want to be on Instagram or Snapchat or any of that stuff. It has been really, really great for us to be able to get information out. We do a weekly robocall. So robocalls are old school. I don't have to tell anybody how much you hate during campaign time to pick up your phone, and it is a robocall with someone saying, hey, my name is Kelly Allen Gray. Will you vote for me? Well, now that message says, hi, this is your councilwoman. Let me tell you where we can, what's happening in the district, in the city this week, and where you can go and call our office, because if you're over 60, we don't want you to be out. And we'll make sure we get food for you. So our phones have been ringing off the hook since mid-March, and they were already busy, and now they are busier, and we're literally working 7 days a week to make sure that we're there to help people. being one of the 5 large cities in the state, we actually got dollars directly from the Treasury. So we got about almost $159 million from the Treasury because of this COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of that money has so many stipulations on it that we're, if they don't loosen them up, we're probably going to send about $120 million back to the Treasury. But I think that was really designed so that our president can say, well, I helped you and you didn't spend the money. So what we're doing with what we're doing with about $40 million of that is $15.4 million. We're paying mortgage payments, rental assistance, utility payments, and it is regardless of your income, which is a stipulation that we've never been able to have because it was all income based. We're also doing a grant program. Sorry, y'all, I forgot to turn my phone off. We're doing a grant program for small businesses. So that's our hairstylists, our barbers, our tattoo parlors, our childcare workers, daycare owners, up to $50,000. Did I say we have almost $159 million we have to spend, and we have to spend it by December 30th. So we are trying to be as creative as we most possibly can. Then the other thing that we've done as a group of elected officials, and we've pulled some people from the community in too, is we've done a series of videos, and there's another video that is coming out this week just talking about staying home and why it's important to stay home and who we're staying home for. So I tell everybody I'm staying home for my 18-year-old son, who I am his only surviving parent now, and for my 82-year-old aunts, because when this is all over, I want a hug and a kiss and an apple pie.
That is great. And I love how much you are talking about this idea of us really coming together in this moment as a community. We know historically, Black folks, we have been taking care of each other. At the end of the day, we know how to come together. We know how to be of service to each other, to lend a helping hand. And along that lines, though, it can sometimes be hard to ask for the help that you need, to acknowledge that maybe this is an area that I'm struggling in that before I had never really thought about. And so with that, I would love to open it up to Dr. Stacia. How are you encouraging folks to manage their mental health and to talk about mental health in this time that, all of us are impacted to some degree?
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because when the councilwoman was talking, I was thinking, that's really good. Like all of the services that they're offering. And I'm thinking, where's the mental health? Because you're right. Like some people are getting the help that they need, but it's such a distortion from our reality, what we're accustomed to doing. Like some people are accustomed to being self-sufficient, even if they've been living check to check. And some people, like she was mentioning, the geriatric population, they're accustomed to doing things on their own, which actually keeps them young at heart. And now they're being told, sit down. My own mother, I had to tell her this morning, no, you cannot go get your nails done. And I could feel the tension in the kitchen rising because I'm saying no to a 70-something-year-old woman who has her own money. But those are the kinds of things that really bother you. And every day, if something is bothering you, that builds up. So one of the first things that I did when I realized, we're going to be staying in place for a while, was released a video, because I agree with you, Councilwoman, that video footage and the social media and the phone calls, that's what people are going to in the middle of the night when they can't figure out what to do next. And so the video basically talked about the importance and the accessibility of virtual counseling, that you don't have to give up those counseling and mental health services just because you're at home. We've been doing virtual sessions for years, and people have been denouncing it. Even our contracts that we have with the state, no, the client needs to come in. Regardless if the client doesn't have bus fare or gas, or their car has broken down, or they got to go to work and pick up their kids at a certain time, there was always this mandate that they had to come in the office. Well, what happened within a week of us being staying in place order? Everybody was put on virtual sessions. So where we used to have, let's say, 40 appointments a day coming to the office, everyone is now on virtual counseling. So that's one of the things that I impressed upon people in the beginning. Virtual counseling is available. The next thing was, don't forget about the kids. just like they're getting on our nerves, we're getting on their nerves. The 18-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, they're used to going to their play dates in schools. My daughter had to come home from out of town in college, and she's very open about sharing. She doesn't like this. And emotionally, she's having a hard time losing her independence. She's having
My daughter as well.
Yeah, not having her friends and everything. So don't forget about the youth and all of the programming that we're developing. Remember them as well. Get them counseling services. Get them some, like they have a stress management, coloring books, adult coloring books and activities to make sure that you're actually listening to them, because guess what? The suicide rate is up. And one of the reasons that they can say the suicide rate is up is because now people are having to deal with who they really are. You have couples who are in the house together that haven't been in the house together at the same time for years. You have parents who are raising children who didn't realize that their children are just as difficult as the teacher has been telling them for years. And our own situations where we're having to work from home and manage all of the other things that are going on. So I'm just excited about the funding opportunities that are available, because we can provide these counseling services on a grander scale for people who would not have normally accessed it. And they're also willing to access it now because you have a valid reason. Before you didn't, recognize, oh, I had trauma as a kid, or my marriage is not working out the way I would want to. Now you can come to counseling and say, I'm having a hard time dealing with coronavirus. And people will be like, oh, okay, come into the virtual room and let's talk. So it's all, I always say, the silver lining of a situation, because coronavirus has definitely created a lot of stress for people, a lot of grief. We lost my grandmother during this period, and you're not able to grieve the same way that you would have prior to this. But there's also silver linings in it. And one of it is that the mental health component of our lives is getting more recognition now.
Yes, I love what you said about we're all having to spend some real time with ourselves, right? We're having to be really honest about maybe the stuff that we've been able to hide from, distract ourselves from, keep busy away from. And obviously a big piece of that is our finances. When you're going to work every day, when you're showing up and maybe being able to put on some fronts and keep, quote unquote, keep up with the Joneses, it can be a little bit easier to hide that maybe that's all happening because of credit card debt. Maybe that's all happening, but other bills aren't getting paid, other needs aren't getting met. So Jillian, I would love to open this up to you of how can people, especially Black women who tend to be the most vulnerable, how can we really manage our finances in such an uncertain time?
All right, so, and that's one of the biggest questions that a lot of people say, okay, what this has exposed for a lot of people is the mismanagement of their money. And to Dr. Stacey's point, this also causes a mental stress because within a household, especially if you have a husband and a wife, that is one of the biggest conversations that people avoid having. They don't want to talk about their finances. And then it creates extra stress within the household. What I've told most people to do in this time is basically look at your bills and figure out and put them in priority. It's going to make you face the things that we've been telling people for the longest. And I tell people, don't feel bad because you weren't saving like you were supposed to, and you've been told all the time you're supposed to have an emergency fund for a crisis such as this, or if you lost your job. And a lot of people don't have that. And a lot of people depended on the government to help them get out of this situation. And what they've learned from applying for these loans or things like that, it's not working. They're not being able to get, they're not able to get those funds. Those funds aren't available. Some of the people that bank with Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America didn't get any money to help them and their businesses or their families, but yet people who did local banks that supported the local community were able to get assisted a lot faster. And so it's going to start putting people to look at the vendors that they use and the resources that are available. Unemployment insurance, everybody says apply for unemployment. It is almost impossible for people to get through under the unemployment. And then you have the people who do get back into business, and now their employees are making $600 extra, and now they don't want to go to work because they're making more money sitting at home. So then you have the employer who wants to help and get you back to work, but now you don't want to go to work. And so you have to put measures in place even on that side of the risk of your kids. You don't want to get your kids sick. You don't want to get your elders that you care for sick. But it's going to force people to look at what is really necessary and important in their household to maintain their household. Some people don't have activities right now, but you're still working. And if that's the case, put that money aside. Save it. Don't spend it. You don't have anything. A lot of people are inquiring about paying their mortgages. What can they do? Because they can't afford to pay it. At the end of all of this, they're going to have to help you. They're not going to forget it or get rid of it, but they're going to be able to help provide some type of resource. It's not the ideal situation, but when we know better, we do better. So.
Yes, I love the when we know better, we do better, because we're getting to learn, we're getting to adapt. You know, we're, especially as we talk about finances, historically, this has been a really challenging topic for our community, especially for Black women who maybe haven't been able to be in control of those finances, right? And so people are having to adapt and shift in ways that are unfamiliar to them. And so with that in mind, Dr. Stacia, I would love to hear a little bit about how you are encouraging people to being open to change, to being open to doing something different.
So one of the things I tell people to do is think about their routine, the routine that you would have had pre-COVID. What are we saying? Before COVID, BC. And what are you going to do during COVID? And that may look totally different from what you did before. We talk about having some level of flexibility that is not only comfortable for you, but for the people around you, so that you can continue to have harmony in the household. If what you're doing is creating chaos in the home, you have to be considerate. That's part of being in a family. And then you have people who are single who are not accustomed to being by themselves 24/7. They've grown tired of Zooms. They've gone tired of hangout parties. They're like, I just need some physical interaction with people. Then let's be creative in coming up with ways for you to get that physical activity out. You know, instead of going to a bar, go to the park, go to the lake. Let's see, somebody was asking something. So what you're doing is you're creating a level of flexibility to make sure that you're remaining calm as possible, if you will, during this particular time. So instead of taking showers, you may start taking baths. Instead of eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, you may start eating breakfast at 10 o'clock because you're sleeping later. There's going to be some shifts in that. The other thing to think about is taking a walk. People underestimate how effective physical exercise is releasing those healthy endorphins that we need to help regulate our mood. So if you have not already, or if you're totally opposed to it, just think about a walk, even if it's up and down the driveway or around the block, just up and down the street, to think about that. And then there's some actual videos on YouTube where you can walk in your home, but I really encourage you to go outside. But if we get really deep into it, if your depressive thoughts or your negative thoughts are becoming overwhelming to you, then actually seek out the counseling services. Again, there's quite a few organizations that are providing them at no charge and even at a reduced charge. And if you're still employed, your EAP provider will may also have some services that are available to you. I hope that answered your question. I saw some in the chat that kind of distracted.
Yeah, no, that was great. And yeah, thinking about, we have to show ourselves a little bit of grace and compassion, right? If a friend came up to us in need and was like, you know what, I'm just going through it right now, there's a lot happening and I'm having to adapt in ways that I'm not used to, you would be there for them. Like you would encourage them. You wouldn't belittle or try to minimize what they're doing. And we have to show that same grace to ourselves in order to get through this, right? And with that in mind, that idea of caring for ourselves, caring for others, I would love to open this up to Kelly. What are you hearing from your constituents and your community members? And what are you seeing the different ways that people are coming together and taking care of one another?
So so here again, as I say, I am the queen of telling everybody to stay at home. That is my mantra, and I stand
True.
by it. I am driving my neighbors absolutely crazy, because anybody who knows me knows that I am social like to a million. And for me to sit down and be okay with sitting down, everyone's like, "Ooh, wait, this must be a little serious." And I'm not coming out. I'm telling you, I'm not playing. I'm so serious about this. So what I am seeing is, you know, your girlfriends have Zoom calls, and we're having Zoom happy hour. I am a walker. So I encourage people to come and walk behind me or in front of me, and really kind of don't talk to me. But let's just be out together. Tracy is laughing, but it's true, you know. But I walk, and for me, that is my sanity. That is my peace. When I start to feel a little anxious, I get up, I put my tennis shoes on, and I go for a walk. But what I am seeing is lots of neighbors helping neighbors, lots of unlikely people stepping in at this time, and supporting the community. So our fire department, we have fire safety prevention, and really their whole job is just to do education, to come out and install smoke detectors, and be out in the community. And what they have taken that department and do, they are now the people who go to community food bank for us Monday through Thursday, and they collect everyone's food, and they deliver food to all of the seniors, and to our different families who are in need of food, who could not possibly get it over the weekend. Then we have another guy who owns a landscape business. The fire department, if they go to someone's house and they need their yards mowed, they call the guy up. He comes back over the weekend and he mows for them. He also plants flowers. So just trying to figure out a way to bring different people together. I have had so many churches in the district step up to start doing food bank programs on the weekend. Now that is my time that I do go out, because I want to go out. I want my churches, I want my different community partners to know that I'm very supportive of them, but we have on a mask and everything that goes with it. So we're seeing different groups who would never have really come together. I have one part of my district has literally four apartment complexes. There's about 360 kids who live below the poverty level, that we were very, very concerned about school being closed and them not being able to have lunch or breakfast, because those were the meals that they normally got at school. And with school being closed and there not really being a way for them to get to the nearest feeding location that Fort Worth ISD had set up, how were we going to make sure those kids got fed? So the fire department really stepped in, and then United Community stepped in and said, hey, we'll make the box lunches if the fire department we'll pick them up and distribute them. We literally thought the first weekend we would do 200 meals. That would be enough. We're up to 500 meals, box lunches that we do 4 days a week. And we really could do 1,000. And we still would probably be able to do more, because we've added 2 additional apartment complexes because the need is so great. So just having unlikely partners in this time has, people who just stepped up to the plate, has been very heartwarming. And it's what our community does anyway. We just really kind of hit a button and said, hey, okay, everybody, okay, village, we really need you all to be the village now. And the village has stepped up.
Kelly, can you touch on the hand sanitizer and mask distribution that you all have done as well? and the company stepping up to, produce hand sanitizer instead of, liquor?
So my district is home to TX whiskey. If y'all don't like whiskey, you haven't had TX whiskey. So that's my shout out. So TX whiskey stopped their production of their whiskey and bourbon to switch over to making hand sanitizer for our first responders and our hospital workers, all of our essential workers, and then as well as the city of Fort Worth. So they started doing hand sanitizer. We had several other companies who came forward and started donating masks. And then we have a company who will clean the mask. So for the last week and a half, we have started distributing hand sanitizer and mask to our different businesses around town, especially our essential workers, those businesses, to make sure that they still are able to continue to do business safely.
When you say clean the mask, what do you mean? So they're not the disposable masks, they're having those masks made?
Yeah, there's not that N95 mask, but
Okay.
there's a mask that you can have sanitized, and that's what they specialize in. It's some type of, it's not a cloth mask. They're kind of pricey. So they clean them and then they send them back. They'll send them back to us. So, and I think out of it, let me make sure, I think maybe you get 3 cleanings, and then you throw those away and you start that round again. Okay. With the next ones.
Thank you so much. Those were such incredible resources too. And it's just like you said, there's this button that gets pressed, and then all of a sudden the community knows to activate and to get involved. Jillian, this question came from the chat, and from here we'll start doing some of the audience questions. What are some ways that people can, or resources that people can tap into to start learning some financial literacy at home, maybe making that first budget and adjusting it accordingly, given the quarantine budget versus everyday life budget? What are maybe some resources that you would recommend?
So a lot of people try to go to Google, and I tell people, find somebody that they know, like, and trust, especially from the financial side, because you never know what information is 100% accurate. Social media has been horrible in this regard because people don't read, they interpret the wrong thing. I have no problems with you ladies following me. I know it's a self-plug, and I apologize for that. However, I mean, I try to make sure and validate as much of the information is accurate before it's put out. Because I've learned that this is not something that, especially when it comes to finances, that people need to be told the truth. I don't sugarcoat things. It is what it is, and people don't like it necessarily. But I provide a blog as well as a podcast for people to listen to. Just to
We invited you. Please provide that information. We invited you. Plug yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
So say all of your stuff.
The name of my podcast is Money Management Made Simple. And my website has my blog on it. It's www.jmvfinancialservices.com. Correct. Feel free to follow me. I try to provide as much resource in this regard as possible. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me directly, and I'm happy to help and answer any questions, because everybody's situation is different outwardly looking in. But I tell people, you don't know where to start. Everybody said, well, what budget system works? The one you're going to use. Yeah, and I call it a spending plan because I don't like telling people what to do with their money.
I love that. And that idea of needing to personalize, right? This is not this situation is not impacting us one size fits all, so our solution isn't going to be one size fits all. And having that space and that opportunity to adjust and adapt. Your website is in the chat box. Kelly, Dr. Stacia, you guys have both referenced some really great resources. You can let me know what they are and I'll look them up and put them in the chat box, or if you know the website, please feel free to drop them in the chat as well. Dr. Stacia, one of the questions that we have gotten specifically around mental health services is cost, right? How do we pay for all of this really great therapy? What are some strategies? You mentioned a couple resources about free or low cost therapy. How might someone go about getting that?
So the first place I tell employed people to begin is with their EAP services. Just like you have coverage for your dental, your optometry appointments and physical, more often than not, you also have coverage for behavioral health is what it's called. So under your regular insurance program, you could access services with a copay amount. And then under the EAP, which is Employee Assistance Programs, you may have at your fingertips 3 to 6 visits at absolutely no charge per year. And those are often benefits that go untouched, and that money goes back into the corporation because it's a service that they've secured, but they don't have to spend any money on because you didn't necessarily use it. So that money goes back to the company. So use your benefits. That's the first place. If you are in the city of Dallas, our office actually has family counseling services, 0 to 17. So I say in the city of Dallas to watch. See, now everything is virtual. So you can actually have virtual sessions as long as you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex at no charge. With your children between 0 and 17, you can have family counseling. And the organization that I've been running for 20 years is positiveinfluences.org. The other place that I always tell people to go is NAMI.org. So that's the National Association for Mental Illness. And that's is an organization that has been advocating for mental health services for years and years and years, even before I started. So that's kind of like the go-to. And if you go to NAMI.org and put your location in, it will give you resources for your actual area, whether as opposed to you going online just trying to search. Now, what I have heard lately, and I'm so glad to hear, is that more people are wanting cultural options for their counseling services. So a good website for women is Therapy for Black Girls. You can get just about anything that you want on there in terms of Black and brown counselors. And then psychologytoday.com, you have, that's a huge database of clinicians from every level, master's, doctorate, psychiatrists, psychologists, clinicians, LPCs, that you can look on to find a counselor. And so what I do is I tell people, if you're going in the dark and you don't know who you want to see, then start with your zip code, the person's closest to you, because you may decide after all this is over that you want to go to the actual counseling office. And if that's the case, you want to have somebody that's in your area. But if you live in Texas, your counselor has to be in Texas. Just remember that. They're licensed in Texas so they can treat you in Texas. And I don't think a lot of people know that. But there are plenty of resources available to you. So those are some good places to start.
Thank you for that. And I just put all of those links that she mentioned into the chat box. And we're recording today's conversation, which will be going out tomorrow. And I will also make sure to include this thread of links from our chat, so fear not. And along those same lines, Congresswoman Kelly, a couple folks have asked, where can they access, the videos you were talking about, some of the specific resources that your office is providing? Where can we direct folks?
So you can find all of the videos on my Facebook and my Instagram page at Kelly Allen Gray. And we share them. I share them because I am the creator of the video. Somehow in this time, I have learned to make videos, something that I never thought that I was going to do, but now I know how to make a video and edit a video and do all kinds of things. So they're all on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. And then there are different links. There are different posts about utility assistance, rental assistance, mortgage payments, but you can go to fortworthtexas.gov /CAP, CAP, and it will pull up that information there to help you talk about, so that you can go and find the information that you need for any type of rental, mortgage, or utility assistance. The next link that will actually come up will be for our economic development piece for the business grant up to $50,000. We actually vote on that tomorrow during our council meeting, and then it goes live just a few days after. So I will make sure that Tracy has that information for you, Sarita, if you want to be able to put that out there as well. But I have a question for Dr. Stacy, if that's okay.
Please do.
So one of the things, sometime last year, I did a town hall, and I talked about mental health, and I talked about mental health amongst Black people, because it is not one of those things that we normally talk a lot about. We say we don't go talk to people. We handle our things with amongst ourselves, or we don't handle it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that came up is it said that Black women are strong. And so what is the purpose? Why would you need counseling? You're strong. You don't need, you shouldn't have to ask for help. And during this time, what I am seeing amongst my friends and even myself, there are days that I just don't feel strong.
Mm-hmm.
There are days that I just really feel, I don't know what it is that I feel. That's my truth. I don't know what it is that I feel. I know I don't feel strong, and I don't feel like I'm at the other end of that rope. But what do you do during those days? Because I know if I'm feeling it, then other people are feeling it. And if we're amongst friends in this conversation, how do we get through those days that it's just not a good day? How do we keep making it through those days when we just don't feel like being strong and we don't want to be strong?
That's a good question.
Can I say thank you so much for asking that question, because it actually hurts my feelings to hear someone say Black women are strong. That insults me.
Mm-hmm.
It's as though I'm not human, or that I have, something more than what any other woman has, but yet I still get paid less. So I'm just kind of conflicted by that, oh, you're strong, you don't need this, but on the other hand, I'm less than. Yeah. So anyway, different conversation, but it is very insulting, and it definitely, I agree with you, and thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, it actually can be damaging when you really think about it. So I'm glad you brought it up too, because one of the things I've said over all of this is that you don't have to suck it up. This is not the time to suck it up. This is not the time to put on your big girl panties and say that I can do everything. So when Sarita said that you have to give yourself some grace and mercy, just like you do your friends, like this is the perfect time to embrace that concept and to look at the people who love you dearly and say, yeah, I need to take a step back. When you said that about the town hall meeting last year, I can be honest with you and say that I teared up, because I think that's one of the things that actually keeps us in bondage, if you will, because we're walking around with the expectation that we can do everything and that we don't have the allowance to actually take a step back to recuperate and rejuvenate and recalibrate, so that when we do come back to the public eye, we're ready and we're prepared. Schedule. And I think a couple of you know Yolanda Harper. She and worked with me on a couple of things over the years, and she encouraged the ladies to put it on your calendar. Your self-care time, put it on your calendar. It's just like a business meeting. So do not underestimate and don't undervalue yourself by making that self-care time a side option. It's an option for next week versus a priority for next week. If you put it on your schedule, then everyone knows that it's important. So you don't even have to come up with a reason. Somebody said, can you join a discussion at 1 o'clock on Friday? Oh, no, I can't. Versus saying, oh, well, I was going to go get my nails done. This is pre-COVID. Or, I was going to go sit out on the back porch and just kind of listen to the birds. All you have to do is say, oh, no, I have something scheduled at that time. That's the first thing. The second time is go ahead and call that girlfriend or your cousin or your auntie, whoever it is, that will give you the space to cry, Go ahead and call that person. I have my cousin, if I say, hey, I just need to cry for a few minutes, she kick back and she let me cry. And I don't care if it's a stupid cry or if it's a valuable cry. You know, my husband and I have gotten into it, or one of the kids have done something. Regardless of what that cry is about, she gives me that space to cry. And there's absolutely no judgment. There's none of this, oh, girl, you overreacting. Cousin, you need to suck it up. There's none of that. There's that space to cry, because what does tears do for us? It's a level of communication. It helps us to release that energy. It helps us to release that stress and that negative feeling that we're having going on. And again, we can go back to rejuvenation, recalibration, and resetting for the next time. The third thing is get your rest. A lot of the times that we're feeling so underwhelmed or overwhelmed is because we're under rested. We haven't taken that time to actually rejuvenate over time. A lot of things happen in the middle of the night. A lot of things happen in the middle of the night. And part of it is restoration. So if you're cutting your sleep time and your rest time, then you're going to have those mood swings. Just a layman's term, you're going to have those mood swings the next day, whether something has happened to you or not, just because you're not fully revived, if that makes sense. And if you have too many days where you're struggling, I'm going to go back to this, I'm going to go back to this, I'm going to go back to this, go ahead and schedule a counseling appointment. I have women that have been coming to me, I know 10 years, not that they come every week or every month, but when they call this cell phone number I've been having for the last 23 years, when they call this number, they can just say, hey, can I schedule an appointment? There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no why. Why would you want to do that? We schedule a time, we pick up where we left off, and we get to talking about what they're dealing with. So if you don't have a counselor on deck, this is definitely now the time to get one. I could go on. I'm trying to.
I love all of that. I have my master's in social work, so I am all day, every day, take care of yourself. There's only one you. You know the most about yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else. Be open, be honest, be receptive, and just like Dr. Stacia said, call someone. Call a friend, call your mental health counselor, call a hotline, call Councilwoman Kellyanne Gray. She'll tell you when you can walk in front of her on what day. You know, have someone in your network that you can call. And if you're finding that someone doesn't exist, now is the perfect time to create that someone, to find that someone. We are almost out of time, and so I would just love to hear from all of our panelists. If you could go around and share something that you've learned about yourself, and something that all of us on the call can do to better manage this time. And I will start with Councilwoman Kellyanne Gray.
So I think during this time, I've learned to like me and to like being in my space. I'm starting a new life. I lost my husband last year, so I'm starting a new life. And my son goes off to college, whatever that looks like, in August. So literally, I am really starting a new life. And this has been that time that I've had to take a moment and just kind of figure out what that new life looks like going forward. In so many different aspects, I realized that I don't have to be social every single day. And for those of you who know me, and I see several of my friends on this call, you know I love whiskey. And so I haven't had whiskey since March 1st. And it's like, ooh, okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to drinking whiskey. But I like me. And I'm realizing that the almost 52-year-old version of me has met the 25-year-old version of me. And moving forward, she's going to be happy and she's going to be whole. And she just really kind of not going to take no more shit from nobody. It's just kind of what I learned during this time.
I think you've done pretty well in not taking shit from other people, but it's okay. If it gets any better, I'm not sure what it looks like, but okay.
And I love what you said about almost 52-year-old you saying to 25-year-old you, we're done with that. We are stepping forward into a new self that is happy, that is whole, and values and validates herself. Because I'm sure we all have experienced the opposite of that and how difficult that is. Dr. Stacia, what have you learned about yourself?
I needed to slow down. I really did. I was probably 3 weeks into the quarantine before I realized how tired I was. And my husband said that he was glad that I was actually not fighting to keep the pace of going to the office and the campus and, you know, out into the community. He was glad that I had been obedient to the stay in place order. And it's been wonderful for me. Like Kelly, you were mentioning your husband, and my condolences to you and your son. We lost my grandmother right at the beginning of COVID. And so I had the time to grieve. I had the time to be with her during her last days, and I had the time to grieve afterwards, grieving differently, but certainly valuing the time to do that. And then I've been able to really I do videos like you guys. Kelly, I have a show that comes on at least once a month called Goals Don't Have Feelings, that focuses on how we have these goals. And like you were saying, how do we keep pushing through if we're really not feeling ourselves? Our goals don't go away, but we have to deal with our emotions that prohibit us from reaching our goals or maximizing our goals. So I talk about the journey of success. Well, during coronavirus, I've been able to create so much dialogue, not only about mental health, but our response to coronavirus, and celebrate Mental Health Month virtually and digitally over that platform. So for me, the silver lining has been a release of all of these other things that had me up at 6 in the morning and not getting home till 9 o'clock at night. Like, I don't do that anymore. I'm at home on the porch at 6 in the morning, and then at 6 at night, I'm at home on the porch or in the garden. So those are the things that I've found about me, is that what I thought I had lost at 50, that I hadn't lost it, I had packaged it away. And so I opened up those packages, and I'm just enjoying it. And I'm like you, Kelly, the 25-year-old self, girl, you did your thing, but watch what I do this time around. So that's what I'm appreciating now, and what I've learned about myself.
I love that. You did your thing, but watch what I'm going to do now. Is so, so important, right? Like, we get to grow, we get to change, we get to decide what actually matters to us, what is meaningful to us. And that might look different at 25 than it did at 50, than it does at 75, right? Humans continue to grow and adapt. And part of that self-compassion is acknowledging and validating that, and saying, it's okay if my priorities change. It's okay if every day I got up and I went on a run and like I was Miss Fitness, but during COVID, I am lucky if I make it from the bedroom to the kitchen to the couch because I'm tired, and we're navigating a pandemic, right? And allowing ourselves that space for change, that space for growth, and saying what matters now might matter later. It might not. What used to matter that doesn't matter anymore might come back up. I don't know, but I'm just going to accept it and ride it out and work with it, right? And so, Jillian, kicking it over to you, what have you learned about yourself in quarantine?
That I need to get out of my office. I work a lot, similar to Dr. Stacia. I'm an adjunct professor, so now my class is online, so now I'm on Zoom. And what I realized and what I had to focus on a lot for myself is self-care. Because my job that I do, I'm very passionate about it, so it doesn't feel like work. So I'll be in my office all day long and not even pay attention to it. With this COVID-19, I realized I needed to basically fill my cup back up in order to be able to assist everybody else that's been reaching out to me. I had no energy to exert to everybody else when they're going through their crisis, because I'm that go-to person if I'm not taking care of myself. One of my girlfriends, we did a drive-by birthday party yesterday for one of our friends that turned 75. What she made a comment about, because everybody's like, oh, I'm gaining weight, and she made a comment about me. She's like, oh, well, she's still working out. I am, and I have no choice to. That's something that gives me peace of mind and gets me out of my office. If not, I will work 24/7. And what I realized is, prior to COVID, I had scheduled times where I would get away from my desk. I forced myself. Now those outlets are gone.
So now what can I do now to put myself in place to know that I can't solve everybody's world problems if I'm not taking care of myself? So.
Yes, absolutely, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And especially as Black women, you know, breaking down that stereotype of the strong Black woman, it is not our job to take care of everyone, especially at the neglect of ourselves. So I love that you're like, yeah, I am still working out because that is something that makes me feel good and feel functional, right? We're all just out here trying to function right now. And I'm sure there are days where you're like, you know what? I want to sleep in. I don't want to get up and work out, and I'm going to honor that too. So before we fully come to a close, I'm going to kick it over to Tracy to wind us down. Again, I want to thank you so much for having me here, for having this incredible conversation. All of you have been so open and vulnerable. I see some great stuff happening in the chat of people sharing what they've learned. I encourage you all to continue reflecting on what we're learning, what we've learned, and what we have yet to see. Tracy, over to you.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody. This has gone a full hour, which is wonderful, and it has gone by so fast and just action-packed. I wanted to bring this back around to voting again because I do want that to be one of the main focuses that we get from this. And during this pandemic, and we are watching the news, I would just ask that we all pay attention to the elected officials that are making decisions. So during this process, we have the council members, the mayor, the county judge, all of the individual elected officials that you see on the news, that you hear have made decisions, when you read the articles, who's involved, so that when you go to the ballot, when you go to vote, that you're conscious and you're aware of what instance affected your life and then apply to that elected official, so that you're clear on who you're voting for and you're educating yourself, because straight ticket voting is no more, and we want educated voters going to the polls, and we want you to connect life with voting. So I just want to make that last point before we close out, but I really want to thank you ladies for coming and being so welcoming and so open to sharing and providing great content. So thank you very much. And Sarita, it's all on you.
Thank you. Speaking of voting, just put a couple links in the chat. Register Texas is a program through the Texas Democratic Party. If you are registered to vote, I still encourage you to go on there. Almost a third of us that are registered to vote are incorrectly registered at the wrong address. So go on there, check your status, tell some friends to do the same thing. If you're not registered, you can go on there, fill out the form, takes about 30 seconds. You will be sent a filled out application. All you have to do is sign it, put it in the postage paid envelope, drop it in the mail, you're done. And that way you're not having to break any quarantine rules and you're still getting involved in that. The other option is txdem.co/VBM app. If you are eligible to vote by mail, I encourage you to go there as a way to request your vote by mail application to get that ballot. Again, removing some of those barriers so folks who don't want to go out, don't need to be out, don't have to. Quick overview, you are eligible to vote by mail currently in Texas if you are 65 and older, if you have a disability, if you will be out of your county during early voting and voting day, or if you are incarcerated without a felony, you can vote by mail. So there's more information there. Again, I will put all of those links in the email that goes out with this recording. But again, thank you all so much. This has been wonderful. I feel like energized and ready to like really be nice to myself. So I appreciate you all and all that you have done, and everyone have a great day and a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita. Thanks a lot, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.